In the shadow of one of humanity's darkest hours, when millions perished in the Holocaust, a group of survivors rose from the ashes. Their name, Nakam. Their mission, revenge. 1945. World War II had ended, but for some, the battle was just beginning. While the world was trying to heal, these Avengers plotted retaliation, driven by pain, memories, and an unyielding thirst for justice. They operated in secrecy, crafting one of the most audacious plots ever conceived. A plan so chilling, it involved poisoning an entire city's water supply. But how far did they go? And what is the untold story of these Holocaust survivors who sought bloody vengeance on their Nazi captors? Stay with us as we unravel a tale of revenge, intrigue, and a desperate quest for justice in the aftermath of unimaginable horrors. The lines between right and wrong blur as we dive deep into the world of Nakam and their chilling post-war vendetta. Fierce revenge of the Nakam. As the smoke of World War II cleared in 1945, from its dark recesses emerged a clandestine group fueled by a singular mission: vengeance. The Nakam, or Avengers in Hebrew, were not just ordinary survivors. They embodied the fiery anger of a persecuted people, and their tale begins with a name: Abba Kovner. Abba Kovner was not just a partisan leader, but also a profound thinker, who would later imprint his mark on history as an acclaimed Israeli poet and writer. But before the world would know his words, they would witness his actions. Abba Kovner was at the heart of this covert group, leading them with an enthusiasm matched by few. Their goal was to seek retribution for the incomprehensible death of 6 million Jews. The Holocaust was not just a series of events for them, it was personal. Each member of Nakam had their own harrowing story, and now, united under Kovner's leadership, they aimed to ensure that their stories were heard and their oppressors faced the consequences. In a world that seemed to have forgotten the cost of their lives, the Nakam stood defiantly, reminding everyone that while the war might have ended, the quest for justice had only just begun. The magnitude of their ambition and the audacity of their plots are enough to send shivers down one's spine. As with all secret missions of such gravity, the Nakam's path wasn't straightforward. Their thirst for justice manifested in two audacious plans, each more shocking than the last. Their first scheme, dubbed Plan A, was nothing short of a catastrophic vision. Picture the bustling streets of post-war Germany: Munich, Berlin, Weimar, Nuremberg, and Hamburg. Families trying to reclaim a semblance of normalcy, children playing in the streets, all oblivious to the impending doom that the Nakam had plotted for them. The goal was to poison the water supplies of these cities, potentially affecting millions. It was an act aimed not just at retribution, but at etching a permanent memory, ensuring that the tragedy of 6 million Jews would never fade from the world's consciousness. Yet, the Nakam were astute enough to anticipate the logistical and moral complications of such a grandiose plan, and for that, they devised Plan B. This fallback plan was, in many ways, even more insidious in its simplicity. It involved poisoning loaves of bread destined for SS prisoners held in American POW camps. Vital statistics suggest that at the height of its operations, such camps held tens of thousands of SS soldiers, the very men responsible for the atrocities against the Jews. Every slice of the tainted bread represented a scream, a tear, and the suppressed rage of millions. But as we navigate the labyrinth of their intentions, punctuated by names like Joseph Harmatz and Pasha Reichman, pivotal figures within the Nakam, the story forces us to confront the very nature of justice and revenge. For those involved, the heart-wrenching memories of places like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor weren't just historical events, they were personal. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, these plans moved from mere conception to the cusp of execution. And with each passing moment, the world teetered on the brink of another massive jolt that would force everyone to reckon with the consequences of collective blindness to human suffering. Nakam's unyielding quest for vengeance. But as history often teaches us, plotting and executing are two entirely different battlegrounds. As audacious as Nakam's plans were, the road ahead was paved with both unforeseen challenges and internal dilemmas. Plan A, with its grand scale of terror, quickly proved to be a monumental task. The logistics of poisoning entire cities were daunting, but it wasn't just the logistics that haunted them. Yes, there were technical hurdles, but a deeper, more profound challenge emerged: the moral implications. Could they, the survivors of unparalleled atrocities, truly become architects of another potential catastrophe? It was a profound, soul-searching dilemma that led them away from the precipice of this mass revenge plot. Yet, the flames of retribution still burned bright. With Plan A in the shadows, Plan B took center stage. With unwavering resolve, the Avengers set their sights on the SS prisoners. The Nakam, undeterred by the challenges of their primary plan, managed to infiltrate the camp, introducing their lethal concoction into the bread that fed these prisoners. And as dawn broke, several hundred prisoners felt the vengeful sting of the Nakam's wrath. But the tapestry of fate is intricately woven. While many prisoners were affected, the effect was surprisingly light. No confirmed deaths. The Avengers had struck, but the blow, though potent in intent, was softer in impact. As the sun cast its first light on that eventful day, myriad questions swirled. Was this the end of Nakam's journey, or merely the beginning of a new chapter? And in their quest for justice, what lines had they redrawn between right and wrong? Vengeance, justice, and unfinished business. Yet, as the dust settled from the Nakam's operations, a new storm was brewing, not of action but of thought. The world may have been in the dark about the Nakam's operations, but within their ranks and in hushed circles, fierce debates began to ripple. Where does one draw the line with collective punishment, revenge, and justice? Was the vengeance they sought a righteous act, or a descent into the very darkness they rallied against? These weren't just abstract debates, but soul-searching questions that the very members of Nakam grappled with. The very essence of their mission, once black and white, began to blur into varying shades of gray. Some of the Avengers, reflecting on their actions, began to wrestle with their consciences. Could their quest for justice justify the potential harm to the innocent? The echoes of Nakam's clandestine operations did not fade with their plans. Instead, their effect would be felt long after, shaping not only their own destinies, but also casting shadows on the pages of history. By the summer of 1946, the winds of change brought about 30 of these vengeful shadows aboard the ship Beria. Despite their brief clash with British authorities, their landing in Israel by July's end was not one of exiles, but of warriors. The embrace they found at Kovner's kibbutz, Ein HaHoresh, was warm and welcoming. Leaders of the Haganah and the Israeli Labor Party held them in high esteem, allowing them to traverse the land as symbols of resilience and defiance. Yet the thirst for vengeance, while quelled in many, still lingered in some. While Kovner and the majority felt their chapter of retribution was at its end, figures like Bolek ben Yaakov were not so easily swayed. They, along with a few other operatives, journeyed back to Europe, hearts aflame with unfinished business. The path was not kind. With Europe's shifting political landscape, challenges arose at every corner. Some of these Avengers even found themselves entangled in the underbelly of crime, seeking escape with the assistance of former allies from the French resistance. In the reflections of Ben Yaakov's eyes, one could see the fire of determination, a man who would have forever been haunted had he not sought revenge, and who bore the weight of regret for not seeing it through. The tales of their vengeance quest were sealed, discussed only in the most private of whispers. Decades would pass before they'd break their silence in the 1980s, revealing a facet of history many were unaware of. And as time moved forward, the world began to reassess the Nakam. In 1999, two members stepped into the limelight, defending the morality of their actions and sparking fresh debates. The German judiciary cast its gaze upon them, but even the cold eyes of the law blinked at the complexities of their story. As of 2019, only a handful of these Avengers remain, their tales a mix of regret, defiance, and a quest for recognition. Their story is a testament to the complexities of human emotions, the fine line between justice and revenge, and the shadows that history often leaves behind. Nakam's explosive impact. The Nakam's tale, intense and haunting, echoed far beyond the closed circles of its members, seeping deeply into the global cultural fabric. Their mission, intertwined with the complex tapestry of pain, revenge, and morality, sparked inspiration, reflection, and adaptation. Michael Bar-Zohar's 1969 narrative in The Avengers peeled back the curtain on Nakam's audacious quest, making their story a matter of public discourse. Fiction then took the reins with Michael Elkin's 1971 piece, Forged in Fire, further etching Nakam's indelible mark on literature. This tale of vengeance and retribution would continue to inspire storytellers, with Jonathan Friedland's novel, The Final Reckoning, drawing upon the saga for its foundation. But it wasn't just literature that felt the pulse of Nakam's story. Germany, where much of Nakam's plans were set into motion, witnessed its own cultural reflections. In the blend of musical notes and poetic lyrics, Daniel Kahn and the Painted Bird channeled the Avengers' spirit into their klezmer song 6 Million Germans, Nakam, in 2009. But perhaps most revealing was the intimate confession of Abba Kovner himself. Through tapes he recorded on his deathbed, the world got a closer look at Nakam's operations in the documentary, Holocaust: The Revenge Plot, aired poignantly on Holocaust Memorial Day in 2018. However, the tales of Nakam don't just rest in books, music, and film. They challenge and reshape perspectives. Experts like Ehud Sprinzak and Edith Zertal have dissected Nakam's mindset, drawing parallels to the messianic enthusiasm and an inherent belief in a world deserving of a disaster. Their conclusions are startling. Nakam, born from the heart of brutalized communities, seemed to differ from other organizations, leaning more towards indiscriminate vengeance. This is Pastflix, and we'll see you next time.